Hello there, and welcome to Startup Kitchen Talk, where we discuss cooking startups and apprentice becoming master chefs. Our today's guest went from transporting people in the Kiwi.com to virtual transportation in the Pocket Virtuality startup. Now she is a SIG startup mentor. Lucie Brešová, welcome to our Startup Kitchen Talk.
Hi, thank you for having me.
How was your day so far? I think it's around 3:30 p.m.
Yeah, it was really nice. I even managed to squeeze in a run, so that was nice.
Squeezing around. A more productive day than mine, to be sure. What did you have for breakfast and for lunch?
For breakfast, I had granola, and for lunch, I had chicken breast with rice and a salad.
Even healthier cuisine than mine. Okay, I'll take notice. As with meals during the day, we start our podcast chronologically. Let's start with the Kiwi.com because you started there, I think, 2014.
Yes.
What was your starting position there?
So I joined the company as COO. And it happened from the sort of friendship we had with Oliver prior to him founding Skypicker, which was the previous name of Kiwi.com. And he just like sort of cracked the formula for the business model for the company, and it started to pick up pace and started to grow. So at that time, it had like 10 people in the team, and Oliver needed to focus his energy on the development of the product and also on the business development. So that in terms of product, it meant getting more airlines into the database. Mm-hmm. And in terms of business development, getting more meta searches that would showcase the results produced by the algorithm of the company. Meaning that more clients would find the combinations created by Skypicker, and we would have more sales. And thanks to this combination, the company was growing, and with his focus on these two areas, he had very little time for the internal organization of the growing company, and it was important to build a customer support center for the first clients that were coming in. The early days were very rustic and very manual work. So basically we were literally booking manually the first plane tickets and sending them manually via email to the customers.
Did you use Excel back then?
Not even.
Not even? Oh my God, what did you use?
Well, just like mail clients and stuff. So, and there was a database in Trello. So that was really very rudimental, and we needed to automate it and to create even answers for the customer support guys that they could send to the clients and not come up with mailing messages for each client separately. It was a very personal approach at the beginning. And so I joined in. I started with the booking of the first tickets myself, and sort of helped create the first beginnings of the customer center, booking center, and all of the surrounding teams. And as we were growing, I think that at the end of the year there was already 30 of us. Mm-hmm. By the end of the following year, like 300 of us, and the year after that, 800. So it was growing very fast, and I was doing really sort of everything from financial reports through hiring of all the non-development staff to buying toilet paper for the offices. And finding new, bigger offices because there was
through COO, yeah.
Yes, as COO, And with the complexity of the business also and the sales also grew, the demands in terms of financial reporting and stuff that could be improved on the financial side, because we were processing really many currencies. You could buy plane tickets in euros, but we would be buying them on the side of the airlines, for example, in American dollars and British pounds. And so there was a lot of work to be done in terms of the currency exchange, which was eating up a lot of our margin. Also, the deals with the payment processing banks, because they were also taking really big fees, and there was a lot of money to be saved on that area as well. So I moved to the role of CFO. To focus on these financial sides. And after some time, we saw that it was still necessary to sort of co-manage the company in terms of both operations and internal stuff and the external and product stuff. So then I moved to the role of managing director. Which was like a second in command to the CEO. So you could think that like the CEO was more externally facing towards business partners and still focused on the business development and product development, while I was focused on making sure that the company was growing healthily on the internal side, that basically stuff worked, that customers were being serviced, that everyone had a chair and a table to sit at, and so on.
You started in 2014 there. Let's paint a picture of 2014. Facebook just acquired WhatsApp. iPhone 6 was introduced by Apple. Ice Bucket Challenge is a big thing. It's a big topic. And Taylor Swift just dropped her hit, Shake It Off. It is ages ago in the startup environment.
Well, it's almost 10 years now.
It's almost 10 years now, and I think when you're counting startup years, it's mainly, maybe you count them as a dog years.
Yeah.
So in normal life, it's almost 10 years, and in startup life, it seems like 60. Back then in our country, meaning that Czech Republic, but speaking, I think, about the CE region itself, as a whole, it was difficult to raise money. There were very limited amounts of VC funds. Was it a Wild West for you back then?
Sort of, because, Oliver had to raise at first 10 million crowns to sort of kickstart the very early beginnings of Skypicker, and he did go around the market quite a bit, and he was still very early stages, so basically he had a lot of trouble finding an investor. He did eventually. And when I was already there, we did need at some point money, but it was more working capital to finance the sales of the tickets, because we had a very brilliant deal with the bank that they not only took a very high percentage of the money that was processed, but they also kept like 5% of that money for 180 days as a rolling reserve. And as our sales were growing rapidly, this rolling reserve was actually lacking in our bank account. And also, when the customer paid us, the money to our bank account would arrive only in 8 to 10 days. But we had to pay the tickets for that customer instantly. Mm-hmm. So we had like 10 business days to finance ahead. And that was straining us very much, which was partly also the reason why I moved to the CFO role. And so then we managed to find Ondřej Tomek, who gave us another round of financing for this working capital injection.
Not only VCs, but you also mentioned hiring. That was your role previously to your CFO role. How was it to explain people what you are trying to achieve, that you don't have as much money for the salary, for example, at that point, but if they stick with the team, they can grow rapidly and might become part of something really big. How difficult was this to explain?
So I think that in this sense we are very lucky at the time, because I don't think we would be able to achieve this hiring spree like in the last few years, when it was really difficult to hire any role. But back then we were happy to hire even junior staff, because basically we needed at some point anyone who had a brain between their ears and willingness to join us. And it got very quickly filtered out by the enthusiasm. And I would dare to say that the first dozens of people were really enthusiasts. It went in hand with the culture in the organization. It was like a young team. There was a lot of party. I will not be hiding that. And everyone sort of became friends, and many of those who were there back then and are still with the company today are sort of like a really hardcore family. So the first hires, it was okay. Later on, when we really started to have hundreds of people, we needed to shift this approach, because for many of those, it already were people who sort of went to work for the salary. And
I meant to ask, how many people can you have in your startup, in your team, to keep this kind of party friend structure? How many people do you think you can have, and what amount is too much?
Yeah, I would say it was the best under 50, and it was still manageable to 150. Mm-hmm. But above that, it started splitting into the teams. And as we were also a young management team, we didn't do the best job in terms of onboarding and managing the super rapid growth. I'm not sure that with more experience we would have done it much better, because the pace was really brutal. But we had to start fixing many things on the go as the company grew to a critical size. And we started to realize that, like you said, many of the people who joined early and grew rapidly in the hierarchy of the company, because okay, you're here for 3 months, so you're now in charge of the new team of hires. So there you go, you're a manager. But these guys didn't exactly get managerial or leadership training. So many of them did as best as they could. But many were really new in these roles, and so it sometimes was even difficult for their own teams, because even things getting feedback or giving feedback were new to them, and so sometimes there was a bit of struggle.
Did you hire a professional coach?
Yes, later on we did, and we did training across the whole company.
The Kiwi's CEO and founder Oliver Dlouhý describes himself and is known as a very imaginative founder that heavily relies on intuition. Was your role sometimes to balance that hotspot with rationality and cold numbers?
I think so, yeah, that Oliver likes to be challenged, and that doesn't always mean that he will listen, but he might incorporate some of the feedback. And I think that in this sense he did a good job in terms of personal growth and being able to look for feedback and learn and move forward in his role, because obviously it's very different to be a kid with an idea and a small startup and then the CEO of a 2,000 head company that's heavily invested and where you have a much bigger responsibility.
I always wonder, was kiwi named after a bird, a person, or after the fruit?
It was named after the short and universally known name that sounds pretty much the same across languages and was actually available to buy.
Domain, right?
Yeah, the domain, yeah. So it wasn't anything really sophisticated, actually.
Yeah, it's hard to find a word that is transferable to any languages.
Yeah, that sounds, like you say it and people know how to write it in all languages.
Yeah. I thought it's pineapple, or pineapple is always a pineapple, or ananas or something, nanas. It's similar with tea and chai. Kiwi.com had a few public disputes. The biggest, to my knowledge, was with Ryanair Airlines and with some of its investors as well. Did these disputes affect the company, and did they affect your work?
Well, I think that since the early days, Kiwi was sort of going against the stream. And you could say that in some ways we had to fake it till we made it. And therefore, having some airlines not being entirely happy with what Kiwi does was sort of part of the story. So obviously, whenever such a case hits, you try to solve it so that it doesn't actually affect the company and especially doesn't break our neck. But you need to keep moving and just do what you can to resolve the case as good as possible.
And did it affect you personally?
Not really. Oliver was always very positive about the future outcome and confident that it will work out. So I think that he managed to project that onto the rest of the team.
And why did you leave? It was 2018. So what was the reason?
Yeah, so Oliver at the beginning asked me to help him build the company so that it sort of always works and so that he can rely on it. And the 4 years have been very demanding. I agree with your comparison to dog years, because I otherwise cannot explain how we managed to do all that in only 4 years in terms of growth. But somehow we did, and it was demanding. It was very challenging, and I was very happy to see that from where at the beginning there was nothing, there weren't any teams, there wasn't any internal organization. And we managed to build the teams and have the leaders that were able to lead these teams more and more on their own. So when I saw that kind of independence, I thought that basically my role sort of became redundant because there wasn't anything more to be built internally, and it was more a story of now making it more perfect, or like making it work more efficiently, but there weren't any new teams to sort of grow.
In one of your interviews, you said that you left the early stage when the startup is, fresh out of the R&D oven. What is so attractive about it?
Well, like I said, at the beginning, there's nothing, and suddenly you get to create stuff. So you, out of the chaos, you sort of filter out an organization that is then there to challenge the status quo of how stuff is done in the world. Would it be in terms of how you search for your plane tickets, or how you buy your groceries, and so on. So from an idea, there is suddenly an organization that serves up to millions of people and brings value to them, which I find somewhat magical.
So you like the burning fire at the beginning. At the same time, it is very demanding, even time-wise, because it's very often it's 24/7, weekend work, etc. How did you handle that?
Well, it was very demanding, and I think that for the first year or two, I barely had a weekend off, and it took its toll. At some point, I started to get sick, like nothing major, but like a serious cough over here, or another illness over there, and I had to take lots of antibiotics. And after several months, the doctors thought that there might be something wrong with my immunity. They ran multiple tests, CT scan of the head and stuff, and they discovered that I'm completely healthy, but that it was just probably stress-related. And I started working with a professional coach. Mm-hmm. And that actually helped me a lot to get my head straight and to prioritize my work, because I think that what was most stressful for me was that there was so much happening at once. And basically it felt like everything is a priority at once. So
and that would give anxiety to anyone.
Yeah, and you sort of needed to resolve everything. So choosing where to start was difficult. So I had to take a more strategic approach on how to actually change the company structure so that it would be more able to resolve its issues on its own.
Knowing all that, do you think that startup founders and CEO are maybe kind of crazy? Then they are willingly doing this to themselves.
They must be. Otherwise, they wouldn't be going for it.
Firstly, you worked in Kiwi, which is obviously a B2C company, and later you joined Pocket Virtuality, which is a B2B. What is the major difference in B2C versus B2B startup approach?
Well, definitely B2B allows you probably to breathe a little more. Like the pace isn't as crazy. Obviously, if you have a service that requires you to provide a product that's up and running 24/7 to the customer, there might be a lot of pressure in that. But other than that, the sales cycle is much longer. More like in terms of 1 year rather than days. And there's a completely different approach in terms of the branding, positioning, and how you actually find the customers, obviously. It's two very different worlds and approaches, and I must say the B2B one is probably slightly healthier, although even there you still have the pressure and anxiety from like, will it work out? Will we close the deal? and so on, because you can't pilot stuff as quickly as with the B2C, where you can really on an hourly basis evaluate how the customers respond to what you are changing on the product.
But describing what you liked that much at working at Kiwi, did you miss the fire?
I must say that after becoming a mom, the fire is at home constantly, so I don't miss it all that much. I have it elsewhere.
Yeah, I think there's being a startup woman, there is only a limited amount of fire that you can put down to not to get burned by it all, right?
Probably.
Coming back to the topic of the startup to scale up change, there are many examples of the leadership being replaced when this is happening. When the startup is scaling, when it's no longer a team of friends, but it's, a couple of hundred employees company. Oliver Lohe managed to get this transition done and remain CEO, but many others didn't. What would you recommend to the, founder of a startup that it's now becoming a scale-up?
Yeah. Well, I think it's natural that these are sort of different roles. And like I mentioned, getting people excited about just your own idea and trying to make it up on the go is very different. And getting this excitement to like a couple of dozens of employees is a very different dynamic from managing a company that's up and running and needs to deliver results and has big engagements and stuff. So you need to start thinking much more strategically and plan much more ahead. And what I find very helpful, and I think like from what I saw with the leaders I worked with, planning in terms of having a long-term vision of where you are going with the company, what's the end goal, and then like dividing it in terms of years backwards, like what we need to do this year if we want to be at a certain level in 5 years. Is something that helps a lot, not only the CEO himself, but the whole leadership, so that they can gain more autonomy when they are working with their teams, and they can be much more helpful to the CEO himself.
And in what situation would you recommend for the CEO or the founders to step down? What would he or she have to do?
Well, I think that when the CEO actually keeps, for example, promising stuff to the investors and fails to deliver, and basically keeps going in circles in terms of like not being able to break out with his product, and although there is potential for the product on the market, then it's time to have this discussion. And I think this should be sort of like a prenup clause when you enter in a relationship with an investor that okay, now we are both very excited about this. You are a great CEO. You are a terrific investor. Let's do this together. But the day might come when we see differently and actually have this discussion up front and say, okay, if this day come, will we be able to do it rationally? Because obviously when the years go by and potentially more money is involved, the emotions start to run high, and it's difficult for people to see clearly. And I think that even people in relationships getting married should sort of have this discussion like, okay, now we're in love, but maybe when we already have kids, we might feel differently about it, and how can we have, for example, a safe word or whatever if the relationship falls apart, because, well, in this case, like 50% of marriages fall apart, so the probability is quite big. So, but people enter it only with their hopes up, and sometimes then the kids get screwed up in the process afterward. But that's another topic, sorry.
No, but it's very interesting. But I would be interested in the numbers. If it is more probable that your marriage will be successful, or that your startup's going to have a healthy, steady growth and it will make it. Let's find out. I don't know. What would you be your bet?
Well, I think that statistically, like 50% of the marriages don't fall apart, which doesn't necessarily mean that they are happy, but they don't fall apart. So technically, like a company that doesn't stop working, but isn't
it's not a
unicorn.
Yeah.
So we can consider them as sort of like half success. And I think that in terms of the startups, the rate is probably much lower. Like the success rates.
But they don't die. They are sometimes they survive.
So
but
I don't have the numbers.
They are just a small company, private business,
and there's nothing wrong with
that.
And
there's nothing wrong with that. But yeah, let's compare like nice private business and agreed marriage or something. Coming back to the you mentioned false promises as a red flag. And I was wondering, where's the line? Because the fake it till you make it approach is, being looked really high upon. It's being understood as a necessary part of startup life. But where's the line between fake it till you make it and false promises?
So I think the line is quite clear in the term of we sort of like fake it till you make it, in the sense you start by building a prototype, something that's not complete yet, and then like when you see that the customers want it, then you sort of build it into a more solid product, from an MVP to something more reliable. While false promises is something that you like say, okay, we'll have that by, I don't know, the end of the quarter, and then it's not there, and you say like, well, yeah, we couldn't make it because we were doing this instead, and even though we didn't agree on this, like we'll have this like next time, and you keep postponing, you keep making stuff up, and you keep even misleading the investor about like what the technology is based on, then that's really a hard line for basically even a criminal offense.
Yeah, that's the difference between Oliver Dlohy and Elizabeth Holmes. There you have it. Now you are a self-employed, a startup mentor. What is your target audience?
Well, I actually don't really think about it that way, because somehow the people I work with, they come to me on their own. But I like to work with founders and help them and the leadership grow their companies. Ideally, for companies who somehow impact how our society is working, and so sort of improving how we all operate. Because I see that, the world is very much, many stuff is still very much offline, and technology can and digitalization can bring a lot of efficiency into that. So I think that there's still plenty of potential in this area. And that's what I love about working with startups and with technology companies in general, because you are sort of like breaking the way how stuff is done and trying to make it slightly bit more efficient. And somehow it happened that now I work with several girls or women who are transitioning internally to the role of COO in technology companies. And
which is something you can, relate to.
I can relate to that, and so I enjoy really working with them. And it's funny to see many patterns in many different companies. You see the patterns emerge in terms of how the CEOs operate toward the rest of the leadership team, and so on. So.
And what are the patterns that you witnessed working with those startups?
Well, in many cases, the teams in general or the leadership teams are hungry for the CEO to sort of like come up with a vision for the company, so that they don't like just work from day to day, somehow like moving slightly forward, but not knowing what's to come in the upcoming future, and sort of being left in the dark. And for the CEOs, it's sometimes scary to actually provide this sort of commitment of saying like, I want my company to be, I don't know, like doing this and look like that within the next 5 years, because they feel like, oh my God, if we don't get there, I will then feel like a failure or something like that. So, and then for the leadership team and the COOs in particular, it's very difficult to actually be doing their job properly if they don't know what to prepare, what to do with the company to prepare it for its future. So
when we were discussing the topics for our interview, we slightly touched the subject of comments on social media, which might get sometimes harsh. You have some of your experiences. I have my experiences with that. Would you recommend something to do with that, to not let negative comments sometimes affect your work?
Certainly, like you need to be able to take in feedback from the people you work with, definitely, and there will always be haters, so you need to be able to filter through that. And I even saw like for the CEO role, it's the same. Like many times. A regular employee feels like he might be a much better CEO than the CEO himself, because, they probably don't see the real complexity of the job. So, of course, sometimes you might be doing stuff wrong. You might be, not very nice to people. And then probably it's good to take in a feedback that you might try to be a bit more pleasant. But on the other hand, this might sound harsh, but we're not going to work just like to be friends. But there's a job to do. We have responsibility towards the shareholders, the owners of the company. So basically, sometimes the job isn't always just pleasant, and you need to be doing stuff that not everyone likes. So you need to find a balance between these things.
What's the worst thing that you've ever read about yourself on social media?
Like I mentioned in our talk earlier, I try not to read these things because I might learn a lot about myself, which on one hand might be enlightening. But when you asked about listening to this negative feedback, comments on social media, I don't have them in the category of relevant comments about my work. So that I would be taking from people I actually work with. Stuff about getting a job through the bed and so on. So, but I guess that probably every girl in some relevant position might sooner or later learn something like that about herself. So.
I think you have a very healthy approach to, not accepting and not letting any nonsense like that to affect your work, which is enlightening. To be sure. My last question is there any advice you would give to a starting startup apprentice?
Work hard, definitely, and try to talk with as many people who've been through that before as possible, because on one hand, experience is very difficult to transfer. We often have to learn many things on our own, but it's definitely good to have a mentor or someone who can support you in the decisions that you're making, because it's not necessary to reinvent the wheel if many people have done it before you.
And maybe be a little bit crazy.
Well, that you need to be to go that way.
Thank you, Lucie, for being with us today. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you. It was fun.